Autumn, season of mists and mellow fruitfulness and rust-coloured leaves spiralling in the vortices generated by rear diffusers, as Keats might have said were he alive in the 21st century. But seriously, I love those shots, particularly when they're in slow-mo, particularly when the car is a fitting shade of racing yellow. They're satisfying. They're the automotive film equivalent of kicking up leaves. They don't serve any purpose, they just make you feel good. And the 911 GTS, well, that's all about adding feel-good factor too.
Yes, as surely as autumn follows summer, so a GTS model line has been added to the 992 range. The addition of G and T to an S costs about £11,500, but you do get a lot for your money. Visually, a GTS is distinguished by the standard sport design package, probably most noticeable from the rear. Centre-lock wheels, a black pack, which I rather like, and black badging for the barely abridged version of War and Peace on the rump. But where this GTS really sets itself apart is in the driving experience.
One of the things that definitely makes you feel good about this car is the way that it sounds, because it's got a sports exhaust but specifically tuned for the GTS, and there's less sound insulation back there. So certainly from inside, this now sounds so much better. You get more of that lovely baleful flat six, and it feels, like it's in the car with you so much more. It's not intrusive, it doesn't get drony, but you just hear so much more of its character. You even hear sort of the whistles, certainly from the turbos as well. It was one of the things I really did complain about with the 992 when it came out, and this solves it.
It's not a case of all mouth and no trousers either, as the GTS gets 30 brake horsepower and 15 pounds-foot more than a Carrera S, taking the flat sixes totals to 473 bhp and 420 pounds-foot of torque. Not huge uplifts perhaps, but the more you delve into the specs of this car, the more you realise that this isn't just a value package of options that you could get on a Carrera S.
It starts with the suspension, because this has got the sports suspension, so we've got the 10mm drop, we've got different anti-roll bars, different PASM settings, but we've also got the helper springs at the rear. What the helper springs do is they keep the mainspring in tension all the time, so if you go over a bump or something and then you get to full droop, it just keeps that bit of tension in the mainspring and gives you more feedback, more control basically, when the wheel comes back down to the tarmac. The overall result, when you put it into Sport or Sport Plus particularly, is a car that just feels that bit more precise, that bit more engaging. I don't think the ride has really suffered that much. Yes, it's possibly a little bit firmer, but this is still very much an everyday 911. Other bits from the turbo, well, we've got the centre-lock wheels, and also we've got the brake system from the turbo as well, so the slightly larger discs, 408mm at the front, although this has actually got the optional PCCB carbon ceramic brakes. Inside, well, there's not a huge amount of difference. You get a little bit of GTS stitching back here. We've got some carbon in this one because we've got the GTS interior package, which also gives you stitching either in red or crayon. We've also got matching dials, both for the Sport Chrono and the central rev counter in crayon as well. And of course the lovely Alcantara wheel. Always makes you feel good, that.
The GTS also sees the debut of a new generation of PCM, or Porsche Communication Management, which will be rolled out across the rest of the 911 range. It doesn't look vastly different, but also didn't seem quite as slick to me, which is a shame. Anyway, back to the driving.
Now, I've seen a lot of people wondering whether a GTS could in fact be a replacement, a sort of an almost better everyday GT3, and I don't think so. Certainly not in this spec of car. So this is the Carrera 4 GTS, and we've just got the rear wheel steer and things like that. But to me, this is, well, it sort of makes the turbo redundant to me. No, you haven't got the huge power and torque of the turbo, but this is certainly quick enough. 3.3 seconds to 62 miles an hour is plenty. You've got the security of the four-wheel drive in this, but it's also got the noise, because this undoubtedly sounds better than a turbo. It also seems to just rev that bit more freely because it's got the smaller turbos compared to the turbo. There's some turbos. So I think it's actually more engaging, more enjoyable down this sort of road. The GTS that might be not a threat to a GT3 exactly, because, well, a GT3 is a GT3. It has that magnificent naturally aspirated engine that this just can't compete with. But the car that might get closer to it is a rear-wheel drive GTS with a manual box, which gets a shorter throw, and then the optional lightweight package. That's not available just yet, but as soon as it is, I think we might try and get one of those in and maybe put it back to back with a Touring. Could be interesting.
Just for reference, the optional lightweight design package includes full carbon buckets in the front, the deletion of the back seats, lightweight glass for the side and rear windows, and a lightweight battery. You also get rear-wheel steering thrown in for good measure. Overall, it will save 25 kilos, but I think the added sense of connection could be the more profound benefit. We'll have to wait and see.
For now though, I'm glad that the GTS has stepped up a bit. This is the daily 911, I think, for me, from the whole range. The sweet spot? That's what they always say about the GTS, isn't it? But it just might be.
There is also one more thing about Autumn that really suits this car. In fact, all 992s. It's the early nights. Because that single sharp red sliver of a rear light that looks like a samurai wound on a volcano, well, it looks good in the day, but in the dark, it's one of the coolest things on the road.
Thank you very much indeed for watching. We're here in the forest, in a lovely autumnal day. There's Sam, both got our bobble hats on. Please do subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and hit the like button and the bell notification icon and all those good things that we're meant to ask you to do, but it genuinely does help us. So yeah, if you want to see more content on cars like 911 GTS, then yeah, do all those things. It helps us. Thank you. Look at that. Lovely day. Ooh. Look at those colours.